Something happened in Berlin today that nobody saw coming, and if you think you know how this story ends, I promise you, something happened in Berlin today that nobody saw coming, and if you think you know how this story ends, I promise you, you don't. Two women walked onto a grass court at Steffi Graf Stadion, and what should have been a routine first-round match turned into something that people are going to be talking about for a long time. But here's the thing. To understand why today matters so much, you need to understand where each of these women came from, because one of them nearly didn't make it here at all, and the other one wasn't even supposed to exist at this level yet. This is the story of Eala and Donna Vekic, and it is not the story you think it is. Let's start with Donna. 29 years old, Croatian, a player who turned professional when most of her current opponents were still in middle school. She won her first WTA title at 17, and the tennis world looked at her and said, "This one is special. This one is going to be a champion." And then life happened. Knee surgery, a torn plantar fascia, setbacks that didn't just slow her down, they threatened to erase her completely. There were years where Donna Vekic disappeared from conversations about elite tennis entirely. People stopped expecting things from her. And maybe that was the best thing that ever happened to her. Because when expectation disappears, sometimes clarity takes its place. She stopped playing for what people thought she could be, and started playing for what she actually was. And what she actually was turned out to be extraordinary. Last year, 2024, she walked into Wimbledon and played the longest women's singles semifinal in the entire history of that tournament. She lost, but the way she lost, refusing to go down, fighting through every single point, told you everything about who she'd become. And then, weeks later, Paris, the Olympics, a silver medal. The first Croatian woman in history to win an Olympic tennis medal. She climbed to number 17 in the world, at 29, after everything that tried to stop her. That is not a comeback story. That is something else entirely. Now hold that thought, because on the other side of the net is someone whose story operates on a completely different timeline, and it's almost unfair how gifted she is. Eala, 20 years old, from the Philippines. She trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy as a teenager, won the Australian Open Junior Doubles title at 14 years old, then won the French Open Junior Singles title, and turned pro with credentials that made people lean forward. But junior pedigree and professional tennis are two completely different worlds, and plenty of players have crossed that line only to disappear. So when Eala started 2025, ranked 138th in the world, the whispers were polite but cautious. She had potential, sure, but potential is the most dangerous word in sports. It means nothing until it's proven under pressure. Then came Miami. She got in as a wild card, meaning she almost wasn't even in the draw, and what happened next was the kind of thing that makes you put your phone down and just stare at the screen. She beat Iga Swiatek, then Jelena Ostapenko, then Madison Keys, back to back to back. Three former Grand Slam champions, or champions-in-waiting, dismantled by a 20-year-old wildcard who wasn't supposed to be there. The Philippines stopped, genuinely stopped. People were comparing her to Manny Pacquiao in terms of national significance. And if you understand what Pacquiao means to that country, you understand how enormous that is. She didn't just win those matches, she rewired what was possible. And she didn't stop. She reached her first WTA Tour final at Eastbourne, won the Guadalajara WTA 125 title, finished 2025 ranked 50th in the world after starting it at 138th. Then 2026 arrived, and she kept climbing. Top 40, top 35, a strong Dubai quarterfinal run that pushed her inside the top 30. And just last week, Birmingham, another title, added quietly to a collection that's growing faster than anyone predicted. She came into Berlin fresh off that win, though she did lose early in London the following week, which is the only real shadow over her recent momentum. But even that loss feels like noise rather than signal, because the pattern of who Eala is becoming is unmistakable at this point. Here's where the story gets genuinely interesting, because these two have met before. January of this year. Auckland. Hard court. First round of the ASB Classic. And what happened in that match is the single most important piece of context for what's about to happen in Berlin. Vekic took the first set, 6-4, controlled, experienced, exactly what you'd expect from the more seasoned player asserting herself early. And most people watching probably assumed that was the beginning of the end. But Eala doesn't read the same script everyone else is following. She came back and won the second set 6-4, and then the third set 6-4, calm, methodical, like she'd planned it. She led their head-to-head 1-0, and she did it by coming from behind against a player with infinitely more big match experience. That tells you something about her competitive wiring that statistics can't fully capture. Now think about the physical dimension of today's match, because this is where things get quietly fascinating. Donna Vekic is the reigning champion of the HSBC Championships at Queen's Club. She won the title there just days before this match, which means she played a final on Sunday, probably traveled to Berlin, and now she's standing on a grass court again with almost no recovery window in between. Grass is physically unique, the low bounce, the constant adjustments, the footwork demands. It catches up with tired legs in ways that other surfaces don't. Meanwhile, Eala, despite her Birmingham title, had that early London exit which ironically gave her more rest time heading into this week. The freshness factor is real, and it quietly tilts the physical equation in Eala's direction, even though on paper, Vekic looks like the one in blazing form. Look at the broader numbers and the picture sharpens further. Over the last 12 months, Eala has won around 63% of her matches overall. Vekic sits closer to 55%. But here's the layer underneath that. In tiebreaks specifically, Eala has won 57% over that same stretch, compared to just 45% for Vekic. And in deciding sets, third sets, the moments when everything is on the line and composure either holds or cracks, Eala has been the more reliable player, which again connects directly back to what happened in Auckland when she won that third set, smoothly and without drama. On a surface where both players happen to share almost identical career win rates right around 60 to 62%, the tiebreak and decider numbers become the potential deciding factor. If this match goes the distance, it threatens to. Their styles are a genuine contrast, and that's part of what makes this so watchable. Vekic is direct, flat off both wings, aggressive first strike, a strong serve that rewards short points and punishes players who need time to build. She's exactly the type of player who can dismantle an opponent before they ever find their rhythm, and on grass that's a particularly dangerous weapon. Eala is different. She's an aggressive baseliner, but she's developed something over the past year that younger players often take much longer to acquire. Rally tolerance. The ability to absorb pace, stay patient, and then shift from defense to offense at precisely the right moment. She's not just a runner anymore. She's a player who can grind you down and then explode when the opening arrives. The question of whose pattern gets to dominate is the central tactical puzzle of this match. Prediction models that have looked at this matchup have landed somewhere around 53% in Vekic's favor. A slight edge, built on her current title-winning form and the weight of her bigger match experience. But that number is close enough to be almost meaningless, and it doesn't fully account for the head-to-head result, the rest advantage, the decider statistics, or the particular way Eala performs when the pressure peaks. She has already beaten Swiatek. She has beaten Madison Keys. She does not treat big reputations as reasons to feel small. That's not something you can model easily, but it is something you feel watching her play, and it's something Vekic already experienced firsthand in Auckland. The grass courts of Berlin, named for one of the greatest players who ever lived, have seen enormous moments. But what makes today's match feel different is that it carries the weight of two genuine stories, rather than just one. There's the story of persistence. Donna Vekic, who absorbed every setback the sport threw at her and came back each time slightly sharper, slightly harder, until she became the kind of player who wins Olympic medals and historic Wimbledon semis and back-to-back grass titles in the same summer. And there's the story of a rival, Alex Eala, who came from the Philippines, trained in Majorca, and has spent the last 18 months demolishing every ceiling that was placed above her with a quiet ferocity that is somehow more striking than any amount of noise could be. Two women, two completely different arcs, colliding on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. in Berlin. And here is the thing that keeps pulling you back to this match. The thing that makes it genuinely difficult to look away even when you try to be analytical about it. In Auckland, Vekic had the lead. She had the experience, she had every reason to close that match, and Eala came back anyway. If this match goes to a third set today, and the evidence says it very well might, You already know which player has demonstrated she can handle that moment. You already know which player's hands stayed steady when the stakes were highest. That's not prediction, that's pattern. And patterns on a tennis court have a way of repeating themselves at the worst possible time for the person on the wrong side of them. Whatever happens when the first ball is struck at Steffi Graf Stadion today, one thing is certain, the player who wins this match won't have won it easily, and neither of them will forget it. Some first rounds are just formalities. This one feels like a statement waiting to be made.